Can you go from a total running newbie to setting 5k records in just 4 weeks? My name is Jake and I'm going to run a 5k every week for 4 weeks straight to find out how fast I can get. Let's get started. Welcome to run number 1. Let's get into it. You can see straight off the bat my shirt is absolutely drenched in sweat, and that's because I thought it would be a great idea to do some Olympic weightlifting before doing the run. And to be honest, it was a great idea because I came into this with my joints feeling all warmed up and ready to go. And I'm running alongside Kyle here on the treadmill. We're both doing this challenge together, and last week we both ran a 5k for a baseline run just to give us a time going into this challenge. So Kyle decided to start off at 6.5 miles per hour on the treadmill, whereas I decided to stick to 5.5 because following my baseline run, I did that all at 5.1 miles per hour. So I thought maybe I should up the speed just a little bit, whereas Kyle wanted to really make some headway and get his run off to a head start. So I'm actually starting at 5.2 here looking at the screen, but I do move it up to 5.5 miles per hour as time goes on. So it's quite early on in the run at this point, so we're looking quite fresh and ready to keep running. So at this point in the run, I'm coming up to the first mile and my heart was already beginning to feel like it was maxing out. I had to stop for a second and just catch my breath back and do some walking. And I do feel like at times it's almost like I can't get enough air, like it's almost like asthma is hitting me. I had asthma when I was a kid, but while I've been doing these runs, I can feel that sort of asthma-y feeling, even though I haven't had asthma for quite a long time now. So Kyle did have some problems with his treadmill. For some reason it reset, I think twice during this run, so he had to add up his times. But just the fact that the treadmill stops whilst he's running really threw him off his game, which is kind of frustrating, to be honest. So I managed to get into a zone quite a few times throughout this run. I look like I'm looking up into heaven while I'm running here, but it was almost like I entered a trance and I just focused on my breathing and running. I kept going through phases of where it felt like I had to really fight and really focus on my breathing, and then it would sort of ease off and it would feel like I could just enter into a trance-like state and keep running, and then it would come back and it would feel like I had to really focus on breathing and try and catch my breath back. And it sort of seemed to fluctuate between these two. So something that happened to me during my baseline run, and is happening to me right now, is my Achilles tendon on my left foot just starts to kill me. And you can see I start to really grimace and I start to limp, and that's because it just became unbearable. And all I had to do was actually just start walking and shake my foot off, and luckily the pain went away. I really thought that the run was going to be over at this point, but I did just persevere. I turned the treadmill speed back up after shaking my foot out, and I got straight back to running, and luckily it worked and my foot wasn't hurting. And while I'm limping here, it looks like Kyle is on an absolute mission. He's entering that running zone that I was just in. And if you are enjoying this video, please consider pressing that subscribe button. And now I'm on the last leg here. I decided to run, I think this was at about 8.5 speed, just for the last few meters, and I wanted to get out at nice speed. And there we go, I finished my run, and I was absolutely soaked. It was like I had a shower in my own sweat. So, comparing my baseline run to the first run of the challenge, I ran the baseline run in 37 minutes and 1 second, and this run I did in 37 minutes and 39 seconds. So that's actually a loss there. So moving on to Kyle's stats, his baseline run was 37 minutes and 14 seconds, whereas his week 1 run was 44 minutes and 45 seconds. And we've got to bear in mind that Kyle had his treadmill working against him, so that really didn't help his time. So let's see if moving into week 2, we can both beat our baseline runs. So that run was particularly brutal. I've just been back for about an hour from the gym and I've been limping around and it hurts so much right here. If it's hurting an hour after running, God knows what it's going to be like tomorrow. Hello, it's week 2 of the 5k running challenge, and we're going to do a run on the seafront. It's going to be me, Kyle and Elliot's going to be setting the pace for us. But we've just been chatting, saying that we're not sure what's going to happen, because when we're running on the treadmill, I might get tired and Kyle might still be going, or Kyle might get tired and I'll still be going. Because we're on the treadmill, we're both there, whereas what's going to happen when we run as a group? So I don't know, it's going to be a learning experience, so we'll see you there. Welcome to run number 2. Today we decided to take it to the seafront and run from one town to the next. So we've got Elliot leading the run today, and he's setting the pace. And the goal of this run is to never stop running. So we're not going to have a stage where we start walking. And constantly throughout the run, Elliot was saying, slow it down. Slow it down. And the aim was to sit in zone 2. So zone 2 would be a comfortable pace that we can talk at and we're not pushing too hard. Now it's kind of hard to tell for me because I don't have a heart rate monitor, but we did have Kyle using a watch that told him his heart rate so we could judge the pace off of Kyle's heartbeat. We had some lovely weather during this run and the views were just really nice. You could get the nice blue sea, the blue sky, everything was looking vibrant. The sun's really playing in our favour this week. So taking this approach where we slow it down and focus on never stopping actually did make the run a lot easier. I found it a lot more manageable than when I was running on the treadmill, and I think looking back I probably am not good at pacing myself. I might just run too fast and then get a stitch and have to walk for a bit usually. But this was quite pleasant actually. I never got really out of breath until towards the end, and it was just quite a nice run really, and I was able to talk the whole way. One thing I did find strange is I'm actually wearing running shoes which I haven't worn for about 5 years because I've been wearing barefoot shoes constantly. But I was thinking about the larger impact that running on normal ground would have compared to the treadmill. So I decided to wear my running shoes, but Kyle's still wearing his barefoot shoes. I think it was really hitting his calves because of that. So for next week's run, I'll definitely go back to the barefoot shoes to join Kyle in the pain of running in barefoot. So overall, it was quite a manageable run, and I wasn't even getting that sweaty. I decided to wear this grey t-shirt, so by the end of the run, I imagined it to be just completely drenched in sweat. But it actually was really not wet at all by the end. I think running on the treadmill in the gym actually is a lot hotter and I end up being drenched in sweat, but I felt pretty good. And this is the first time I've ever actually done any running outside, and it was a lot nicer than running on the treadmill because you get to just be outside. I typically wouldn't even be here because I'd just be at the gym or at home, so it's a nice reason to get outside. Running as a trio down the road, it's quite fun running as a group actually. I don't think I would do this solo. I think if I was on my own, I'd probably just go to the gym, but as a group, definitely fun running outside. So there was no real point during this run where I felt like I was really getting out of breath. I was getting a little bit of a stitch on the right side, but that did go away luckily, and for some reason my lower back was kind of hurting a tiny bit, but it was nothing to worry about. So we've just run up a hill and running down it, and Kyle's heartbeat was going mad up that hill. I think he reached about 180 running up the hill, and we're coming down, I think about, at this point, Kyle's heartbeat was about 170 coming down the hill, so he's getting a little bit of a rest in now. But he was definitely not in zone 2, so we actually needed to run this a little bit slower. Like I said earlier, it's just really nice views, and it was a really nice day. Like, the sky looks amazing on this camera. I really like it. So we're about 2/3 of the way through the run at this point, and we've got a long stretch of flat ground here to run across, and it was just kind of strange just suddenly being in the next town over. You know, when you're running on the treadmill all the time, you're not going anywhere, so it's kind of cool to actually just suddenly be in a new environment after having your run. So I did notice that when I was wearing these running shoes, my Achilles tendon didn't get impacted at all. Unlike where I've run on the treadmill, it felt like my Achilles tendon was being really pulled and it was getting a lot of tension through it, but that seemed to all have dissipated by wearing running shoes. I did find that the run really hit my quads, however, and maybe that's a good thing because it means I'm using my muscles and I'm not taking the impact through my joints. But I did feel like that I'd done a leg workout by the time I got to the end of the run. It felt like I'd done a really long set of doing squats and my legs felt quite like pumped by the end. Another thing I noticed with wearing these running shoes is that I felt like my foot was getting blisters in weird places that I don't usually get when I'm wearing barefoot shoes. It was almost as if the shoe was sort of pinching the side of my foot, which I didn't really notice until towards the end. So we're on the last leg now and I'm going to be running as fast as I can really just to get to that last bit to finish the 5k, and this really took it out of me. I had to keep holding my hat because it felt like it was going to fly off my head. And there we go, that is the second run finished, and my final time was 37 minutes and 29 seconds. So I actually managed to beat last week's time by 10 seconds. And it was a PB because I never stopped running the whole time, which I've never done before. I've always had to stop and start running whenever I've done it, but this was all in one solid block, so that was a great feeling. So I'm really pleased with being able to do that. And Kyle managed to get it done in 37 minutes and 54 seconds, which is considerably faster than his last week's run. And we've got a little breakdown of his heartbeat here because he's wearing the watch. He had an average heart rate of 171 beats per minute, which is going hard. That is not zone 2 running, but it does mean he was working really hard and it must have been a really good workout. Welcome to week 3. Now this run felt like the best run of the whole challenge so far. We decided to take our 5k run to the local park, and Joe is joining us with this run today. So I planned out a route for us here that required 2 laps to reach that 5k mark. So the plan was that we would run all as a group for 1 lap, and then once we get past that 1 lap mark, we're going to go at our own pace to see if we want to push and go any faster. And I'm also trying this run out with a new pair of low-no barefoot shoes. And if you feel like you want to support the channel, then click my affiliate link in the description to pick yourself up a pair of the exact same shoes that I'm wearing here. So I will say I've been finding doing these runs a lot easier since we've been slowing things down. I never feel like I'm getting out of breath, and while it doesn't look like we're running very fast, it's allowing me to do the full 5k without stopping. So following on from Elliot's advice last week to slow down, we went into this run with slowing things down in mind from the start. We were going to do that first 2.5k together at a nice manageable pace so we could keep the running going and never have to stop to catch our breath. And the nice thing about today's run is that it had just stopped raining when we started running, so it wasn't very hot, although it was quite humid. But it was a nice experience to run in overcast conditions, and I did quite enjoy that compared to running in the sun. So overall this run felt pretty manageable, to be honest. I was able to keep the pace, it didn't feel like my heart was pounding. I did get a little bit of pain in my shins, but that kind of just went away over time. Now I will also say that I have been training my shoulder here by holding the camera every time we go for a run. Not the kind of training that I was planning, but holding that camera does get your shoulder to ache after a while. Now another thing that I've been enjoying is running in different locations. It's nice to be able to see different places when you go out for a run. And if you're thinking about doing this sort of thing for yourself, I'd highly advise going to a different place each week because it just makes it a little bit different and keeps that variety. You do feel like a bit of a weirdo running around with a camera in your hand, and people have been giving me weird looks as I run past them, but I've just been ignoring it and I've just been keeping going anyway. Oh, and we saw this giant duck that I just had to point the camera at there. It was massive. It doesn't look so big on the camera, but I assure you it was massive in person. So we maintained running as a group quite easily for the first lap. Jo was quite nervous going into it. She's only ever done one 5k and it was quite a few years ago, and she was very worried that she wouldn't be able to run the whole time. But I do think running as a group made that a lot easier. So it was really nice running through the park. Lots of nice greenery and trees and bushes to run through. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. And I did decide to wear the same grey t-shirt for this run because I like that you can sort of track how hard I'm pushing by how sweaty the t-shirt gets. So once we got around to that first 2.5k, Kyle lent me his watch so I could track the distance, and I was going to run off ahead because I really wanted to push for a PB and get some pace going. So I broke off from the group and got my pace up and went off on my own. So while I was pushing the pace, I did find that I had to keep slowing down to catch my breath a little bit, but I never had to stop and start walking, which was the main goal of the run. I was able to push that pace a bit faster than I usually did, so I was pretty happy with that. Yeah, I was quite surprised, to be honest, that I did not have many issues with this run. It felt pretty straightforward. I was just able to get out there, start running, and the only thing I needed to really focus on was how hard I was pushing and my breathing. And every time I sort of entered that I'm pushing too hard phase, I just really focused on breathing through my nose, and I just slowed my running down just a bit, and I was able to get my breath back and then bring the pace back forward again. So now we're on the last bit and I'm really pushing the pace and we're coming up to it, and that was the 5k.
35.25. 35.25.
So I did the run in 35 minutes 25 seconds, and last week's run was in 37 minutes and 29 seconds. So 2 minutes and 4 seconds off of last week's time. And here they come, they're coming across the line together. finishing the 5k, and Joe was really pleased to be able to have done that without stopping. And Kyle hit a time of 40 minutes and 38 seconds. And while that was over 2 minutes slower than his week 2 run, I think he was keeping his pace the same as Joe so she could keep her motivation high. So today is the final run of the challenge. It's all been leading up to today. And I accidentally woke up at 4:30 in the morning, and I've been playing World of Warcraft all morning. It's currently 9:15 and I need to start getting ready for the run. We're going to start running in 2 hours and 15 minutes. So I've really got to get ready, eat something, and make sure I'm fueled up for this run because I'm going to be going for a PB today. I've got to beat, I think it was 35 minutes of the previous run. So I'm going to try and beat that today. And we're going back to doing it on the treadmill because that's where we started. So we're going to see how much we've really improved. So I hope this doesn't work against me, but I'm actually cooking 2 sausages and a bit of bacon. And I've got some pepper here and a wrap, and that's my pre-run fueling. And I've got 1 hour 50 till we start running. So hopefully my body will have digested it by then, but I'm hoping this will fuel me up. Let me know if you think that's a good idea. So it's the final run of the challenge, and this run put me through the ringers. As typical, this run started off with a great sense of dread. I had to battle my inner demons for the first 10 minutes. I was shifting between a state of running and intense fear. First of all, there's the radio right behind my head. When the presenter was talking, I thought someone was talking to me, and for some reason that terrified me. And then I'd look up at the clock before me, and I couldn't help but think about my very life ticking away before me. Every noise around me was stirring, and I found myself in this hyper-awareness mode. But throughout this, I was making good time. I set my pace, so if I was at my slowest, I would hit 35 minutes, which would equal last week's time. And I was slowly upping that speed throughout. Now at the 10-minute mark, I entered a new phase. Regret. So I hope this doesn't work against me. That sausage and bacon wrap that I ate started assaulting me, and I was getting a stitch, which persisted for pretty much the rest of the run. For a lot of the run, I had to grab my stomach in the hopes that it would stop it hurting, but it didn't. So I had to adopt a shamanistic breathing ritual. It felt like I had to breathe out and let my body collapse, and then as I breathe in, my body would rise. And if I didn't put 100% of my energy on breathing, then all I could think about was the pain in my stomach. So the next thing that was getting me was the heat. Running inside in the gym is so much hotter than running outside. I'd forgotten how hot it could get, and I was getting drenched in my own sweat. You can't really see it on the camera, but there's a little fan at the top of the treadmill, and that was doing absolutely nothing. So I just had to battle my own brain and keep running. But as I got to the last third of the run, I was picking up the pace, and I think I was running the fastest that I'd ever run. And whilst focusing all my energy on breathing, I managed to enter a new state, which was joy. It felt like I was flying. I felt like I was making contact with the ground very briefly, and for the rest of it I was flying in the air, and that really brought a smile to my face. And the sausage and bacon at the bottom of my mind, I was able to run and put in a time of 31 minutes and 20 seconds, smashing my previous week's time by 4 minutes and 5 seconds. Kyle was also running on the treadmill just down from me, and he managed to improve his time to 35 minutes and 18 seconds, which is 5 minutes and 10 seconds faster than last week. And once I finished this run, I felt absolutely smashed. That last third of the run, I really tried to put in some work, but I really feel like if I went into this run fasted, I'd be able to break the 30-minute mark. So just looking back at the start of this challenge, I went from being able to not run the whole 5k and having to keep stopping to catch my breath, to being able to run a whole 5k, to being able to push my time. And that was only in 4 weeks. So you really can make a difference to your 5k time as a new runner if you just do it once a week. And going forward after this challenge, I'm going to keep up my running, run a 5k once a week, and just see how much faster I can get it. And I ran 3 out of 4 of these runs in barefoot shoes. And if you want to learn more about the shoes that I'm wearing, then click this video that's popped up now and you can learn all about barefoot shoes and how they can help you. And if you feel like you want to support the channel and pick up a pair of barefoot shoes yourself, then click my affiliate link in the description. Not only will this let you pick up a pair of nice barefoot shoes, but you'll be supporting the channel as you do it, as I get a portion of the profits. Thanks for watching.